I'd firstly like to acknowledge country and the lands on which we are on, the lands of the Bunurong and Woiwurrung peoples of the Kulin Nation, and pay respects to their elders, past and present. I'd also like to acknowledge the space that we're in, which is Moondani Balik, the Indigenous academic unit here at Victoria University. Moondani Balik means embrace people in Wurundjeri language, and I think that's reflective of what the space is and represents for many people here at VU, including myself. And with that, I'd like to thank Karen Jackson, the Executive Director of Moondani, who has welcomed us here today to hold today's launch, and who has also embraced me as a non-Indigenous researcher in the unit as well. I'd also like to thank the folks from the Institute of Health and Sport, Mohammed from Brimbank Neighbourhood House, Ralph from Making Media Australia, and of course the Sidran crew, particularly Angela, Sam and Chris, for helping to organise and coordinate this event and for supporting in putting this all together, so thank you. So I'd like to welcome you all to the launch of the Brimbank Live report. Many of you know who I am, but for those of you who don't know me, my name is Dr. Roshani Jayawardana. I guess I can describe myself in a lot of ways, but I think the best way to describe myself is that I'm a young person who was born to migrant parents from Sri Lanka who settled here in Melbourne's West in the late 1980s. I've grown up and lived in Brimbank all my life, and what it means to be in community as a young race person is something I not only think about often, but I'm constantly reminded of in institutional and community spaces. These experiences and these reflections have led me to embark on a crazy little journey of doing a PhD, guided by the academic support of Professor Christopher Son, Dr. Nicole Oak and Dr. Amy Quayle, and supported by the Institute of Health and Sport and Sidran. This research was done in partnership with Brimbank Neighbourhood Houses and Community Centres, which are a body that governs a range of community spaces in the Brimbank area and aims to respond to the needs of community through its programs and its facilities. My doctoral research aimed to understand how such community spaces could be used to platform and support young people, and my work specifically focused on documenting the process and the stories shared through a program called Brimbank Live, which was a youth-led radio program initiated and supported by Brimbank Neighbourhood Houses. The report we're launching today encapsulates aspects of my doctoral findings in relation to Brimbank Live, specifically around the impact and outcomes of the program. So the context that led to the Brimbank Live program began in 2019, during a time where Brimbank Neighbourhood Houses were doing work to transform and reimagine their community spaces. As I began my research within the unit, I met Liz Gabb and Mohammed Isa, who were leaders in the Brimbank Neighbourhood House space. Liz was a unit coordinator at the time, and Mohammed was a team leader at Sydenham Neighbourhood House, a particular neighbourhood house location. Liz and Mohammed felt very passionately about community-driven spaces, and they welcomed me to learn and accompany them through their journey and their brave work of pushing boundaries and opening spaces within council settings for young people. This was particularly important work, given evidence that young people in Brimbank had ambivalent experiences in local settings, characterised by surveillance, exclusion and discrimination. The combination of young people's age with multiple social categories of race, gender and socioeconomic status also amplified and exacerbated young people's treatment in community. To understand young people's perspectives and experiences, we engage in ongoing conversations with young people in the streets around Sydenham Neighbourhood House. Over several months, we built relationships with young people and gained insight into what they wanted and needed from community spaces for them to feel safe and connected. In response to these conversations, the Sydenham Neighbourhood House team rolled out pilot programs that spoke to young people's passions around art and media. However, just when we thought transforming council spaces was a big enough challenge, the pandemic came along and threw us a curveball. This led to some more reimagining around what it would be like for young people to create and lead spaces, build and share their skills around their passions, but also stay safe and connected during COVID. And that was when Brimbank Live formed. The radio program enabled young people to create their own radio station and produce radio shows that spoke to their interests. Our shows platformed topics such as sport, music, pop culture, current affairs, gender diversity, racism, and politics. The radio process was supported by radio producer Ralph Barber from Making Media Australia, who provided us with radio training, resources, and studio time to plan, formulate, and record our shows in ways that were COVID safe. And I say we because as I documented the radio program and the stories that young people shared through radio making for my research, I also immersed myself in the radio program as a young person, engaging in radio making with and alongside the collective. So whilst the background of this work is really important, and I do encourage you all to read more about it in the report, It's the people who took part and built this space who truly made it what it was, particularly the young people of the radio program. And I'm joined this afternoon by 3 members of Brimbank Live, Adongwot, Lauri and Max, to share their journeys and experiences of doing this work. So I might hand it over to you all to maybe introduce yourselves and describe who you are and what you do. Lauri, you can kick it off.
Hello everyone, my name is Lauri. I joined the program when I was 15, turning 16, so I was, I think, one of, if not the youngest in the program. So I'm now the ripe old age of 20. I actually, honestly, this program was kind of the lead to the trajectory that my kind of career has taken so far. I'm now working in research and community spaces, so I really learned a lot from Liz and Mohammed and Ralph, but then from research also from Roshani and the other participants as well. So it's quite funny to come back here, a bit of a full circle moment, but yeah, it's fantastic. So.
My name is Adongwot. I don't want to say what age I joined because I'm not so young anymore. It was 5 years ago. I can't believe it. What else?
Who you are, what you do.
So currently I call myself a bicultural consultant because it's vague but it sounds good. But I do a lot of work in the anti-racism and cultural safety space. I dabble in the education space as well, but I think most of my passion is trying to support people in walking in each other's shoes, getting a bit more empathy and understanding each other. As a South Sudanese Australian, we all know the kind of image we have around here, so I kind of try and take up as much space as possible and show people that we're not a monolith and we're not monsters and we're just people. So that's kind of a lot of the work that I do.
Hi everyone, my name is Max Hatzoglou. I'm a sports writer, commentator, presenter and producer. A few different things I do, but it's basically just sports media work. And yeah, very excited to be here today because this program was definitely something that helped me kickstart everything I do today. So thanks everyone for turning out, and the weather's turned up for us as well, so good to be here.
And also Max has to leave the panel early because they've got work calling, which I think is really reflective of how amazing these young people are and how their knowledge and their skills are needed in so many different spaces. So if you see Max walk off, that's why. So I think a good place to start is, how did you all become connected to Sydenham Neighbourhood House and then specifically the Brimbank Live program?
Do we want to do the reverse?
Oh, we'll do the reverse. Max can start.
Yeah, sure. The way I sort of got into the program was I live in Brimbank, so that was a good way to get myself into it, and my father's done a lot of community work in the area as well. I obviously love sport, and that probably came from him because he grew up in the local community playing cricket and different sports in Brimbank. And he also knew Ralph Barber, so I was lucky to get that connection there, and I got involved in the program, and never looked back. So that was sort of the way I got into it.
Can I just say, as soon as Max got off Brimbank Live, he became like a sports journalist overnight, and I was like, so he's really killing it. Like he's acting really humble, but he's really killing it. How did I get involved? I moved to Melbourne in 2019, and I tried to connect with people that were in the community space, and lucky for me, I met Liz and Mohammed pretty quickly and pretty early on. So I started off kind of trying to figure out what was going on in Brimbank when it came to community, and then I don't know how I was introduced to just learning the radio craft and got to meet Ralph. And then I was told, oh, there's a radio program. Do you want to be a part of it? And I said, sure. So yeah, I got involved into that. And journalism is my background. I love to yap. And so yeah, it was just kind of a natural happening. Yeah.
I grew up most of my life living in Brimbank, but I went to primary school in Moonee Valley. So I kind of started off doing a lot of youth programs in Moonee Valley. I was really into Freezer and all that kind of community space, anything that combined creativity and people, I was all for. And basically my mum got sick of driving the distance, so she saw a flyer for sitting in a neighborhood house and was like, just go along, just see what they do. And then I went there, I loved it, I never looked back, and so yeah, I kind of met Mohammed and Liz, and then COVID happened and they were like, hey, while you're stuck inside, do you still want to be involved in the program? We'll do some radio stuff, and I was obviously very down, so yeah.
Amazing. I think like one thing that tethers all your stories is a lot of the time these like young people connect to mentors, and it was people that you had met and mentors within the space that actually invited you in and welcomed you in. And I think that's really cool, that it wasn't just that we as young people had to go into these spaces on our own, but we had that support and those people that we trusted that were recommending us the space. So we forged the collective. We did radio training online over Zoom, which I think was like the first time that we had ever really used Zoom, so that was a bit chaotic and wild. And that was when we got to know each other and built our radio programs. And altogether we did about 13 radio programs that we produced over the 2 years, which was really cool. And all of the radio programs had different themes, different formats. Some were conversation-based, others were, just us yapping away. Can you tell us a little bit about the shows that you created and what inspired you to create them?
So I was part of 2 shows. So one of them was a collaboration, and the other one I hosted solo. So the collaboration was called Local Music Hype, which I hosted with Amy Castillo, who I'm sure you'll see her face on the screen. But we wanted to find young people who were like living in and around Brimbank, who were releasing music, who may not have had the chance to release stuff on Spotify or have a lot of exposure, and just chat to them about what was happening in music locally and what was happening with their careers and their artists' kind of journey. So we chatted with them. And then the other one that I did was a show called Tag You're It. So I interviewed some people in the drag community, so a few drag queens, and I basically I chatted to them and then I asked them who inspired you, and then whoever they told me, I would go and interview that person. So I just kind of went around to the different people who inspired each other, and it was a really cool little network which I got to interact with.
Good way of getting guests as well on the show.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I was just like, hey, can you just find me my next guest? I'll just do hands off.
Take the waiver out, yes.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Sorry, getting all the memory shot. But I remember I did a show called In the Know, breakfast show. But the one that I loved the most, I had Roshani as a co-host and Lydia Tessima as well, and it was called Soul Dive. Wow. And it was the 3 of us talking about a whole bunch of different things, from pop culture to social justice issues, am I the asshole? That was segments, and just kind of getting different perspectives on different things in the world that we were passionate about. It was really amazing.
Yeah, I remember your shows. AD shows used to be on before mine, and I'd be listening to theirs, and then I'd be so nervous about mine. So the standard of my shows certainly weren't anywhere near theirs, so it'd be quite funny. But yeah, my show was called The Sports Hour, and went for an hour and just tried to hear about the stories of sporting people out in the community, from a local level to an international level. I remember there was a guy that I grew up with in the Sunshine area in the western suburbs of Melbourne, and he went over to America to play college basketball. So he was over there, and I got to speak with him while he was there. So stories like that and interviewing people was sort of what my show was about. And had some a lot of really good highlights, and probably a lot of mistakes as well, because at the time I was learning, and it was so good to have this opportunity, because I learned through Ralph and guys like Mohammed who were involved as well, and probably made a lot of mistakes, but also had some great moments as well. So it was great fun.
Yeah, definitely. And you mentioned guests that you interviewed. I wanted to ask you all, who was your favourite guest to interview throughout your Brimbank Live journey?
I can go first.
Yeah.
Cool.
And it was a guest that Roshani secured actually.
Oh yeah. I know what you're
I
gonna say.
forget
Yeah.
his name.
I can't remember his name.
But he is from the show Suits, like Oliver, you know. And he was so funny, and he was on set a few times with Meghan Markle.
Yeah.
So we were trying to ask questions about that, and he's like, "Stop it." But I just remember that because I was like, "How did we secure such a massive guest?" It was amazing, and it was a testament to our reach and what this radio program could really do. So yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah, that was cool. And I think the most ironic thing was at the time, neither myself or Adongwot had even watched Suits, so we really had no idea of.
No, what's it?
Oh, you have?
Oh yeah, I was fangirling.
Yeah, because I think we were recording it and I was a bit like blasé about it. I remember Max came in afterwards and we were like, oh yeah, we just interviewed this guy and he's what? That's huge! And I'm like, okay, I'm glad it's landing.
Yeah,
Like,
honestly, I was definitely excited.
Yeah. What about Lauri?
I was honestly, like, you blame age, but I don't know what I've got to blame. My memory's going as well. I had to like look back and remember the show names. I also can't remember their names, but there was a drag queen who I interviewed who didn't do a lot of like performing herself, but she did a lot of kind of like stage management and tour management for other drag queens. And if anyone knows the drag queen artist, she was like quite big, and I think she did some stuff with RuPaul's Drag Race and all that kind of jazz. So it was really cool to, because the first person I interviewed was a young drag queen who I'm friends with, and so who was making a lot of waves doing drag like before the age of 18. And then this next person I interviewed kind of had that community-based knowledge, but then also the knowledge of like really massive production stuff and like national tours and going to America. And so being able to talk to somebody who had both of those conversations happening at the same time was really, really interesting. Yeah.
My one was probably this guy called Jim Markowski. He ran this program, and he's not like the most famous person. A lot of my guests weren't, well known. But Jim, he ran this community basketball program, and it was just a story that was so great. He ran this program, getting kids from the community, giving them a purpose. They all loved basketball, and yeah, they all came like hundreds of kids, and they probably don't have all the resources around. So just hearing his story and how he was able to get people from the community to get active and really have fun and enjoy their basketball. He was probably like the only parent in the centre for about 100 kids, sometimes maybe more. So I don't know how he did it, but hearing that story was just incredible. So I enjoyed having him on, and I think he was one of my first guests. So I was quite nervous at the time, but got through it, and yeah, it was good fun.
Amazing. And yeah, we did interview a lot of huge people, not to name drop or anything, but we did well. What were the most fun and rewarding aspects of being involved in the radio program?
For me, I think meeting you guys is great. I'll say that. That was because the Brimbank Live announcers and all of us were, the enthusiasm was amazing. So sometimes you can go to a program and not everyone's into it, but it was certainly everyone was really excited about it. So that lift gave me a huge lift. But yeah, learning the craft of radio and hearing from Ralph Barber just really inspired me as a young person. And you go in there and the studio is amazing. So there's lighting on you. You feel quite special. So yeah, I loved it.
I definitely second that. The people that I got to meet, Roshani, we still cross paths all the time. We're friends. Lydia, she's one of my closest friends. Ralph Barber is my guy. And they always say you're only as good as your teacher. And I think Ralph really instilled confidence in us that, even if you never meet him again, you continue using that and you keep moving on up, I guess. And I think that confidence that you put in me, I'm always like, oh, you're a star, buddy. I just have Ralph Barber's head in the back of my mind all the time. And having Liz and Mohammed, so many years later as well, I think was the biggest highlight. It's just the people that you meet and those relationships that you form.
I mean, same as the other two in terms of relationships and the people who we had as mentors and as amazing, like, encouraging forces. But I think even more so than that, the kind of greatest part of the program was not even the opportunity itself, but the opportunities that it showed me, like, there could be. It, like, to be in a studio in that space, to be around adults who are really wanting to hear your voice and who are really encouraging you to speak up and talk about things that you're interested in. That was definitely, being as young as I was, kind of the first time that I'd had that space. So it kind of made me ask for more going forward in the next few years. I really sought out those spaces, and I really sought out to create those spaces for other young people and share that kind of incredible opportunity and environment. So yeah, I think it's not even the people themselves, but kind of, yeah, as you were saying, the voice in your head and the way that pushes you forward.
Definitely, really great responses. Also the skills and the knowledge that we learned, how have you sort of applied that in the other spaces that you're in now?
For me, yeah, it's been just learning about a bit of the radio craft has been huge for me, and also interviewing. Ralph gave me so much guidance at the start of interviewing, making sure you're ready to go, knowing your guest, introducing them, stuff like that has really helped. So yeah, and then I go back and look at it and see some of the interviews, and yeah, it's like obviously I've improved and improved since then, but just being yourself, and I think that's the thing that remains sort of the same. So trying to get that out of yourself and sticking true to it brings out the best in you, I think. So that's something I also learned.
I think for me, definitely those interviewing skills are huge. Obviously, working in community spaces, I mean, I'm not interviewing people every day, but I am having conversations, and what is an interview if not a conversation? So that was definitely really valuable, but also just the technical and creative skills. I love creativity, I love art, and I love music, and so the space that combined that with having those conversations and with community, those kinds of skills are really cool. I love running art programs for young people now, so yeah, those skills definitely.
I think the biggest thing is audacity. I got pretty good at that. So I was able to edit moving forward, and you can transfer radio skills, which is quite, what would you call? Not scripted, but it's, there's a formula to it. And I kind of moved that to the podcasting space. And I think, yeah, I transferred a lot of those skills, and I also taught in a specific neighborhood house a couple of times, podcasting workshops for adults. And I definitely took a lot of those skills and tried to pass them on. Not very well, but I tried my best. And that was from learning from Brimbank Live, for sure.
I feel like we should clarify Audacity is the editing program.
Yeah.
I have the Audacity.
That too.
Well, that too, yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think, and I think you've all sort of touched on the ways that the skills and the knowledge that you sort of grew within the program are just things that you're able to take in other spaces, and it doesn't have to be radio necessarily, and it doesn't have to be in the podcasting space, but it's in the conversations that we have, it's in our writing, it's all of those things. So I think that's pretty special, that even though the program is not still running, that it's still running in the ways that we've taken those skills and we apply them to different spaces. So I think that's kind of cool. We've spoken about the rewarding aspects and fun aspects. What were some of the challenges and the hurdles of doing Brimbank Live or Radio Nation in general?
COVID.
Oh, yeah, the
Dare
big
we
one.
say?
Yeah.
I think for me, communication, at the time I was quite young and just having confidence. I think it's a common issue amongst everyone, when you're young and you're just starting something new, it's always going to be a bit nerve-wracking and stuff. So yeah, just sort of being able to get the words out, and that, it just comes with experience. Sometimes things just take time. If you do it the first time compared to the 10th, you're going to be far better off the 10th time. So yeah, that was just great to learn that, and having someone like Ralph so supportive, it's you can make mistakes, and that's like welcomed. So that made it really helpful.
I think having run a show where I was on my own and then one with a group of people, there were pros and cons to both. Being by yourself means that everything falls on your shoulders, and I think it was a weekly program, so you have to be on it all the time, whether you feel like it or not. And similarly as well, having a group of people trying to learn each other, because I think that was the first time we ever did anything together. We didn't grow up together, we weren't friends prior, so we were having to learn each other's styles and communication styles in and outside of the studio, and trying to come to common ground about what we are all interested in and how we want to go about it. So if, for example, maybe I fall off, the other two would have to pick up my slack and vice versa. So just kind of learning how to work in a group setting, could be challenging, but I thought it was also really rewarding.
Yeah, no, I definitely hear that. Do you want to elaborate a little bit on that?
Oh yeah, I make the COVID joke, but honestly, Ralph did such a fantastic job of teaching us online that we may as well have been in person. So, but probably the challenge was the whole process of learning an entirely new process. Coming up with a name and coming up with an idea, and then how do you put that idea into practice? How do you find people to interview? Once you found them, what do you actually ask them? How do you edit it? What order should things go in? That entire process was brand new for me. So putting all of those moving parts together was definitely a challenge, but also really rewarding.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing about radio making. When you hear an episode or you hear a show, it sounds so put together, but there's so much going on behind the scenes, and it's a lot of hard work. And I think that doing that on top of figuring out what it meant to live in COVID, and also juggling everything else that we were doing, a lot of folks were in school and at uni, and so all of those layers made it quite challenging, but I think that it was rewarding as well. So given your experience in the Brimbank Live program, what would you like to see more of in community spaces and programs for young people?
And we've seen this happen, and I see Ralph doing it all the time, going into schools and letting young people have a voice and talk about things they're interested in through the radio craft. So the couple of schools that I was a part of a few years ago, I put the idea forward, the school should start a podcast, or a radio show, and then bring in Ralph to make that happen. I think it should just continue on. I don't think it's going on anymore in Brimbank. It should be an ongoing thing. It should be a permanently funded thing. It should be moving on to every council where there's spaces for young people to have the opportunity to voice themselves.
Yeah, I think adding to that, it's such talking and podcasting and radio is such a good platform to not only for the people that are behind the microphones and hosting to run the program, but then if you have shows like these in communities, it gives other people the platform to speak, and you can ask them questions and they can offer their thoughts, and so I think that's a real positive about it. So it'd be awesome to see it in more and more communities.
I kind of have a lot of thoughts on this, because I come from the perspective of both a young person, but now moving into the youth workspace and having worked in youth work for a couple of years. I was really fortunate to have the opportunity to have my voice heard in programs like this, and I think programs like this still do exist out and about. Obviously there needs to be more of it and consistent, but I think in terms of youth voice, we are hearing more and more youth voice, but a lot of it needs to be followed up with action. A lot of the time adults will say to young people, we'll go into high schools and we'll say, oh, what do you guys want more of? And they're like, we have all of these ideas, here's everything, we've done your entire job for you, and then nothing is ever followed up. So I think in terms of youth voice, it's important, but adult action is where we're falling short.
Yeah, really, really great response there. Yeah, no, it's true. It's true. Last question before we open it up to the audience. But I wanted to end the panel with the same question that I asked you all right at the start of doing Brimbank Live, when I had those initial conversations with you all. And this was all the way back in 2020, and I asked you what you hope to achieve in the next coming years. And I thought it would be nice to have you all speak on this, because I was actually revisiting a lot of your responses, and it was so nice because a lot of you have actually attained and achieved a lot of what you told me that you wanted to achieve in the next 5 years, and I thought that was really, really like touching. So yeah, I want to open up the space for you to manifest and put it out there again, what you hope to achieve in the next coming years.
I'll go first because I'll answer this. Then unfortunately I've got to leave, so I'm sorry about that. I've just got work on that I need to get to quickly. But yeah, it was amazing. Once I finished the program, like pretty much, I don't know if people are into sport here. I'm sure that there'll be a number of you. But just watching a game and then after the game seeing like a press conference and people asking questions, that's what I really wanted to do and dreamed of. And yeah, I'm happy to say that like I've been able to do that, and that's been amazing. So at the time I never thought I would be asking questions with professional AFL athletes and other people and working for different newspapers and stuff like that. So so yeah, I'm pretty proud and happy. But yeah, so that's been amazing. So yeah, like very thankful. And the way I got one of the first jobs I got after Brimbank Live was at Triple M in Adelaide as a producer, and I started off 3-day internship and then got a job from there. And to get that internship, it was saying I've done stuff at Brimbank Live, I've done producing, presenting, and a number of other things. And yeah, so I was very lucky to be able to have this program in order to present myself to a work opportunity and internship. So so yeah, very, very thankful, and yeah, thanks guys.
I don't remember that question.
Yeah, what do you hope to achieve in the next? Thanks.
No, as in I don't remember you asking in 2020 and what I could have possibly said.
We'll talk after.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do I hope to achieve in the next few years? I really want to be established or more established in the anti-racism and cultural safety space as a respected expert. And I really want to grow my consultancy because, you know, I always say I'm better at being a boss than a worker bee. And right now I just have to do everything on my own, and I'm like, oh, it's so tedious. So I'd like to actually have, you know, a consultancy firm that's more than just a one-man band. Yeah, that's the dream.
That's a good dream.
Yeah.
Watch this space.
Yeah.
Watch this space.
That's what I mean, I'm about to, like, in a couple of weeks start my bachelor, so like hopefully I'll finish that in the next 5 years. I'm kidding, I have more confidence in that. I'm manifesting. But yeah, so hopefully get that bachelor behind me, step out and study. I'd like to do some travel and kind of live life a bit, but also definitely want to put more energy into creative spaces. I feel like we get very busy sometimes, especially I'm full into it. I moved house today, so I've always got many things going on at the same time. So I'd like to slow down a bit and really put more work into kind of my writing and my music and enjoy that. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. And Lauri's an incredible performer, singer, and songwriter. So yeah, watch the space. We might open it up for questions from the audience. Questions? I've got a mic there.
If your question is how can you hire?
Yeah, we'll just do like a plug for 5 minutes.
Yeah, right. Don't be shy.
Thank you. Amazing to hear. I had a question about, because we live in such a visual world and yet voices remain so important, and so about kind of the voices you were able to find for yourself and other people, and then the reach that had through other worlds.
I'm happy to pick this up. I think in terms of audio, something that's super special about it, I was chatting to a friend about this the other day. Visual media, as you said, the world is full of it. And if you look at like a visual from 1940 versus like now, it's so drastically different. Like we've got animation that's come leaps and bounds, and effects and lighting and all that kind of jazz. But audio, that stayed mostly the same over the years. And so if you listen to an interview that someone did in like the early 1900s or something like that, you feel so much more connected with the person because you really get to hear their voice and you're not distracted by the visuals of what was happening at the time. So I think that intimate connection is something that's really special about radio, and that I hope continues in the world, and we don't lose that really awesome format.
I think I'll speak on it from a presenter's point of view. So I did journalism at uni, and I always thought journalism was sitting in front of the TV, right, and presenting. And I did an internship for ABC Radio, and as soon as that was done, I'm like, peace, because what is radio, right? Like, I'm supposed to be on Channel 7. And then I realized a few years in, after, you know, doing Brimbank Live and things like that, that there's this safety in not having to perform or show up visually, where you can actually just speak your mind and focus on your thought process and what's going on in the moment, instead of, you know, how you're dressed, what you look like, if you're staring deadpan into the camera, right? And so I realized, you know, the power of having radio without the pressure of visuals. Even though we did have the visuals, Ralph, you know, really made us feel like just focus on the audio side of things. And I realized, like, that's actually really powerful. And I should have stuck to radio a long time ago. Yeah.
It's got a voice for it.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I was just going to say, you said like the pressure of showing up visually, but you always showed up visually for radio. In between the breaks of like, you know, fixing our hair and like reapplying makeup. So, yeah. But yeah, I think that that's a good point. And I think as well, like when I think about radio and visuals, but also radio and writing, like in academia, just the ways that your voice and conversation is so much more intimate, and you can really understand a person through conversation and through words. And I think that that is something that, yeah, audio and radio has that I think visual doesn't. Yeah.
I have a question, and this is a bit of a reflective question. And I want to thank you all for always giving us shout out, Ralph, Lisa, and myself. But I want to also acknowledge that you all did a hard work.
Yeah.
So on reflection, what could we have done better?
Ooh. Be honest now.
And is there part two to that question?
Hey.
You're really testing our memories here, Mohammed.
I don't know. I feel like you put the best people, you know, by connecting us with Ralph, you couldn't have done a better job there. In terms of someone who knows how to connect with young people, as someone who's been a teacher for yonks. So he just knew how to connect with us, how to communicate with us, how to, you know, place that confidence in us and teach us in a way that we could understand and receive. I don't know, I'd say, you know, should have been paying us the big bucks. I mean, maybe that's something you could have done better. $1,000 a show.
Fire.
No, but I think it was wonderful. You gave us the space to do us. You didn't censor what we could talk about, so we had the freedom to kind of do whatever we wanted to do. So yeah, I think you did great. Yeah.
I mean, my only feedback is almost kind of a compliment in the same breath. More of it would have been fantastic, like a continued program. I feel like we learnt so much in such a short amount of time. It would have been really cool to continue applying that. And I think you guys did do that. You did do a second program, which I unfortunately couldn't do because I was in year 11, you know, high school. But yeah, so if anything, it's just a credit to the great job you guys did. Was more.
Yeah, I hear that.
So what I'm hearing is that you came in to a space that was really new, and you challenged yourselves, and you also had to be yourselves in those spaces. So I'm wondering about how it is that you think what you're going to do in the future will change the places where we're at now in terms of being safe in places, of being recognised, and of being respected in those spaces? And does something like this help you understand that or challenge those things? So I've 2 questions more.
I mean, I don't know if you have seen the screen scrolling through, but there's some pretty dramatic visual differences between me at like 16 and me now, especially in regards, well, firstly, I grew back my hair from being bald. I did the World's Greatest Shave, so I was very different hair-wise, but also transitioning and transness. And I do work in youth spaces, and I have worked in high schools, and I worked in a high school for a little while where within the first week I'd had 6 students come up to me and come out to me as trans that none of the other teachers knew about, and it was because they knew that I understood them. And so even though they knew me the least because I was a brand new teacher, they felt comfortable to share that part of themselves with me. And so I think in terms of creating safe spaces, like I've had people ask me, oh, how can we get more young people involved, and how can we hear more from Youth Voice? And my answer is the same every time: employ young people. Because the only way to hear from young people and hear Youth Voice is to really reduce that kind of unbalance in power dynamic. And the only way to do that is to have people talking from lived experience and people who can get on the same level because they are on the same level.
Like I said earlier, when asked about who I was, I said I like to take up space, and I realized just being present and people who look like me, seeing me in these spaces, has given them the confidence to be like, oh, if this weirdo can do it, you know, why can't I? You know?
Terrible description.
Yeah. So,
no, not really.
So for me, it's not even about being an expert or knowing what you're talking about or things like that. It's just being in those spaces and showing other people that you can be here too, and keeping that door open for others to come in and most likely do better, you know, because that's what we want. So just be there, yap away, show up, be who you are, and I think it inspires other people to also want to show up. Yeah.
Definitely. Any other questions?
I might say something. I've got to say that the thing that you wouldn't see in this group right now, and the rest of them aren't here right now, how anxious they were, how lacking in confidence, which I couldn't believe, because what I see today is what I saw 5 years ago, but they couldn't see it. And the idea that we weren't coaching them to become radio stars, even though you'd love to be a breakfast announcer these days, earning $600,000 a year and all that sort of stuff on commercial radio. And by the way, 1 or 2 of them had the opportunity, but we didn't go down that path. The story of so by the way, the way they're growing is unbelievable, and what you see today is such impressive people take their own path. But the story about the suits guy, I know the story because I tell the story all the time. When I go into a school and we start talking about, okay, who are you going to interview? Think big, let's not be small, let's go for big. And I tell the story in suits, right? And what Roshani, the way I understand it, is that I gave them the big speech about go big, don't go small, go big. I don't care how big, overseas, we just, whatever, you know. And Roshani went home, and Roshani, very, very polished today, but she was very quiet back then. Yeah. And she literally went home, thought, okay, I think I'll DM this guy on Instagram. And she goes, you know, she comes back the next day and she says, Ralph, I've got this actor from Suits. This is overnight. It's not like he took time to make a decision. He made a decision overnight. And I said, who is this guy, mate? We Googled him. And like, he's an Iranian actor. Yeah, Fawad or anyway, the way she wrote the Instagram message wasn't like we're just doing a radio show in Melbourne. No, she actually thought about it and said, because he was an Iranian actor in Hollywood, and you just wouldn't see that. There was no representation for an Iranian. So Roshani very intelligently put that in the. So you go, look, we're doing a radio show. You're representing young Iranian people all around the world who want to go to Hollywood. So that Instagram post made a Hollywood actor who's untouchable get back to her overnight and said when and where, right? And I still remember the actual interview, right? The interview, you think, he'd be on for 5 or 6 minutes and off he goes. At the end, they had to wrap him up. But he wanted to keep talking, remember? He just wanted to keep talking. And I tell that story all the time, not because of anything, become a producer in radio, but the idea that, you can use through communication platforms these days, anything to connect with anyone, as long as you've got the initiative and you think about it. And it's just such a wonderful skill, and they're the sort of soft skills and the transferable skills I hope that they're getting from these radio programs. And but what you see today, everyone. I can't think of one person who has not grown from that moment. And the pleasure's all mine, guys. It was fantastic. So.
I think the moral of the story is slide into people's DMs.
If I could add to that really quickly about everything you just said, in terms of what you taught us and what Mohammed and Liz also taught us, you guys weren't teaching us how to be confident radio presenters, you were teaching us how to be confident people.
Nice.
And so I think something that I really enjoy now that I've taken that lesson and trying to apply it now is with experiential learning and the kind of skills you want to teach people. You're not teaching young people how to do certain roles, you're teaching them the confidence and the presence that they need for those roles. Yeah.
Yeah, very well put. Yeah, definitely. We might wrap it up there in terms of the official panel questions, but I encourage you all to continue to chat and engage in conversation with the panelists. I want to thank the panelists for today, Adongwot, Lauri and Max, who has left us. If you can all join me in thanking them.